Wisdom teeth. Wisdom teeth are the third set of molars that show up in your late teens or early 20s. And look, they actually used to make a lot of sense. Our early ancestors had massive jaws and a brutal diet of raw meat, tough roots, and coarse leaves. They needed every grinding tooth they could get. And since dental care wasn't exactly a thing back then, having an extra set of backup molars was genuinely useful. Then humans discovered fire. We started cooking our food, making it softer and easier to chew. Our brains grew bigger, and as our skulls changed shape to accommodate those bigger brains, our jaws quietly shrank. The problem is, no one told the wisdom teeth about this new arrangement. So now, these teeth still show up on schedule like they're running a program written 100,000 years ago, pushing their way into a jaw that simply doesn't have room for them anymore. The result is pain, impaction, infections, and a bill from a medical professional who seems very happy about the whole situation. The Palmaris Longus. Okay, I need you to do something for me. Put your arm flat on a surface facing upwards, touch your pinky finger to your thumb, and slightly flex your wrist upward. Now look at the inside of your forearm. Do you see a raised band of tissue running up the middle of your wrist? If you do, congratulations. You have a palmaris longus muscle, which is a long, narrow muscle running from your elbow down to your wrist that is completely, totally, wonderfully useless. If you don't see it, you're part of the roughly 10 to 15% of the population that was simply born without it. And here's the kicker. There is absolutely no functional difference between people who have it and people who don't. None. You can't grip harder, you can't lift more, you can't do anything better with it than without it. This muscle used to help our early primate ancestors swing through trees and grip branches. Now it just sits in your forearm doing absolutely nothing except being mildly interesting at parties. It's so useless, in fact, that surgeons will happily rip it out and use it elsewhere when they need tendon material for reconstructive surgery. Your body is apparently just carrying around spare parts at this point. The appendix. This little guy is a tiny worm-shaped tube hanging off your large intestine, and for most of human history, scientists, including Charles Darwin himself, assumed it was a useless leftover from a time when our ancestors needed to digest tough plants and rough foliage. A biological footnote. A relic. Its main claim to fame for most people is getting infected, swelling up to the size of an angry little fist, and then sending you a $15,000 hospital bill. Fun stuff. But, and this is a big but, recent science is starting to suggest that the appendix might not be completely useless after all. Some researchers now think it functions as a kind of safe house for your good gut bacteria. So when you get a truly horrific stomach bug, the kind that completely wipes out your digestive system, your appendix may be quietly sitting in the corner holding onto the good bacteria so it can reboot your gut once the storm passes. So it might actually be doing something. Or it might just be killing people randomly. Science is still working that one out. The Plica Semilunaris. Go find a mirror real quick. Look at the inner corner of your eye. See that little pink fleshy nub sitting there? That right there is the sad shriveled remains of what used to be a third eyelid. Many animals, like birds, reptiles, and cats, have a fully functioning third eyelid called a nictitating membrane. It's a translucent flap that sweeps horizontally across the eye to keep it moist and protected, while still allowing the animal to see. It's honestly pretty cool, and if you've ever watched a cat zone out and go half-eyed, that's what's happening. Humans, at some point in our evolutionary history, stopped needing it. So we lost the whole functioning membrane and kept only this tiny pink remnant in the corner of our eye, like a browser bookmark we'll never visit again. It doesn't sweep. It doesn't protect anything. It just kind of sits there, being vestigial. Auricular muscles. Here's a fun one. You have 3 muscles surrounding each of your outer ears. They're called auricular muscles, and in most people, they do absolutely nothing. In most other mammals, these muscles are incredibly important. Watch a cat hear something suspicious. Its ears rotate and swivel like little satellite dishes, zeroing in on exactly where the sound came from. That's an active, useful survival mechanism for an animal that needs to locate predators or prey. Humans, at some point, developed flexible necks instead. We can just turn our heads. Problem solved. And so those ear muscles became redundant, slowly weakening over generations until they became the vestigial lumps they are today. Now here's the fun part. Can you wiggle your ears? Go ahead and try. If you can, it's because your auricular muscles happen to be slightly more active than average, and you've essentially unlocked a completely useless superpower. The coccyx. Your tailbone is called the coccyx, and it is, without question, one of my favorite pieces of evidence for evolution in the entire human body. Once upon a time, our distant ancestors had tails. Actual tails, used for balance while moving through trees. But when our ancestors started walking upright on the ground, a tail became a biomechanical problem rather than an asset. Evolution eventually scrapped it, leaving behind just the small, fused vertebrae at the base of your spine that we now call the tailbone. Here's the part that blows people's minds though. For about 4 weeks during development in the womb, every single human embryo has a tail. An actual visible tail measuring about 1/6 of the embryo's entire body size. It gets reabsorbed as the embryo develops, and most of the time you'd never know it was there. But very rarely, that process doesn't complete fully, and a baby is born with a small residual tail. This has happened, it is documented, and yes, doctors remove it surgically, because despite how absolutely fascinating it is, it's not exactly useful in modern life. You were briefly a tailed creature, we all were. Think about that next time you're doing something embarrassingly human, like forgetting why you got in a room. Arrector Pili muscles, goosebumps. Every single hair follicle on your body has a tiny muscle attached to its base. These are called Arrector Pili muscles, and their job is to make that hair stand up. When you're cold, they contract. When you're scared, they contract. When a song hits that perfect moment and you feel a shiver up your spine, they contract. The reason they do this goes back to when humans had significantly more body hair. When our furry ancestors got cold, these muscles would puff up the fur, creating a layer of insulated air to trap body heat the same way a puffy jacket works. When they were threatened, the puffed up fur made them look bigger and more intimidating to predators. Think of a scared cat turning into a small, angry cloud of fur. We lost the thick fur, but we kept the muscles. So now, all that ancient hardwired response system fires up and produces small bumps on your skin. That's it. You don't look bigger, you don't get warmer, you just look a little bit like a plucked chicken for about 30 seconds. Male nipples. Alright, I saved possibly the most philosophically interesting one for last. Why do males have nipples? They don't nurse, they don't lactate. By any functional measure, they serve no purpose whatsoever. So what's going on? Here's the thing. Every single human being starts development in the womb following the same basic blueprint. And that blueprint is, by default, female. In the first few weeks of embryonic development, male and female embryos are developing in exactly the same way, and that includes the formation of nipples. It isn't until around 6 or 7 weeks that the Y chromosome activates and begins releasing testosterone, rerouting the developmental path toward male anatomy. But by that point, the nipples are already there, already formed, already part of the blueprint. And evolution basically looked at the situation, shrugged, and said they're already there, they're not hurting anything, leave them. So there you have it, not a vestige of something lost, but a reminder that we all start from the same template, which is either beautiful and profound or mildly inconvenient, depending on how you look at it. So that's the tour. 8 organs and body parts your body is still dragging around for no particularly good reason. The human body is honestly less a masterpiece of design and more a very long, very complicated work in progress. And honestly, that makes it so much more interesting. If you learned something new today, or if you just discovered you're missing a forearm muscle and you're mildly concerned about it, hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more where this came from. I'll see you in the next one.